Right, so here's where we left off, and I wanted everyone to have a picture of what's really going on behind the scenes. What you do is you use an editor. We're going to be using NetBeans as our editor here, and with that we're going to create this text file. It's also known as a source file because it has this is the source where the compiler goes to find out what it needs to compile the program. So it takes the stuff you type in that's here, sends it to the compiler, and then the compiler will go and create class files out of all of the source files that you had said was in your project. And it also links those up with library files that come prepackaged from the Java libraries. Merges those two together, and it sends those two things to the Java virtual machine. Then finally the virtual machine has everything it needs to actually run your program. So again, this is a really good picture to have in your head when you're trying to figure out, well, what am I actually doing here? Am I writing code? Yes. And then I send it to the compiler. The compiler does this, sends it to the virtual machine, and then the program is actually running. So here's some self-checks just to see how well we're understanding things. Can you use a word processor for writing Java programs? Yes, but you remember to save your files as plain text. You wouldn't typically do this. Like if you got Microsoft Word or Google Docs, not the best place to be writing source code. It's better to write either with a plain text editor like Notepad and Notepad++, or even better inside of an integrated development environment like NetBeans. What do you expect to see when you load a class file in your text editor? I think we tried this the other day and it just looked like a bunch of junk. So a sequence of random characters, some funny looking. Class files contain the virtual machines, and they're encoded into binary numbers. So if you try to look at that in a text editor, it's not going to make a lot of sense. All right, let's just quickly talk about errors. And there's really two types of errors when it comes to programming and running computer software. A compile time error is a violation of the programming language, and it's detected by the compiler. These are like syntax errors. So for example, here we have system.ow, the T is missing, and the compiler will flag that and say, hey, I don't understand what you're trying to say here. So typically compile time errors or syntax errors are just oversights when you're writing the source code. Now runtime error is a little bit different. Runtime error causes the program to take an action that the programmer did not intend. So this is the point, you've already compiled it, the program is actually running, and then something weird happens and the program perhaps stops responding. Say here, if you deliberately tried to divide by 0, that'll pretty much kill any program being run by a computer, because remember that dividing anything by 0 is undefined, and the computer doesn't know what to do with that, so it throws an exception and then your program is done. So that's a runtime error. Typically these are logic errors. Maybe the programmer didn't quite take into account all the possibilities of how this method is being run, and maybe overlooked one like dividing by 0. So you would take that back in the code, and then you'd write in code that would help the user avoid dividing anything by 0. Error management strategy. So while we're learning how to program, we need to learn about how to avoid problems and common errors. Beginning programmers run into a lot of these. You have to give yourself some time to understand, okay, what are the common errors and how do I avoid them? You want to use defensive programming techniques to minimize the likelihood and impact of errors. Once you're done writing your program, you want to test and debug the programs from a strategic point of view to get those errors out. And so when you send your software to the actual user, they're not going to run into a bunch of bugs. Now what would happen if we left off the forward slash characters from the HelloPrinter.java program? but not the reminder comment. Would you get a compile time error or a runtime error? And the answer there is a compile time error. The compiler will try to interpret the comment, and it won't know what to do. So that's a compile time error. The compiler will not know what to do with the word display. It's not part of the language. It's not in any of the libraries it's trying to use right then. So I get really confused. When you use your computer, you may have experienced a program that crashed, quit spontaneously, or home failed to respond to your input. You see this all the time. Is that behavior a compile time error or a runtime error? Well, let's see. You've already compiled the program and it's actually running, so the errors happen at runtime. You have to have it compiled before you run it. If you compile a program and it doesn't compile but you still run it anyway, that doesn't really help you, because it'll use the previous version of the program that actually run, but not the one you just changed. So yeah, if it doesn't compile, you can't run it. Here's the self-check. Why can't you test a program for runtime errors when it has compiler errors? Well, it would be when a program has compiler errors, no class file is produced, and there's really nothing to run. So you have to get the compiler errors out first before you ever get a program that you can run. That makes sense. Okay, we're going to stop there in this chapter. So looking back at chapter 4, we went through sections 1.4 all the way up through 1.7, and then we stopped at 1.8. That's what I'm going to ask of my students to know about in the first chapter of this book. I guess that's everything. Thanks.